Okay, what if I told you that your daily habits, the coffee you drink, the walk you take, aren't just shaping your day? What if they're actually, like, literally influencing your genetic code? Imagine your whole lifestyle, everything you do, acting like some kind of complex software programmer. It's constantly tweaking which genes in your body are switched on and which are switched off. And that directly impacts, well, everything: your personality, your health, maybe even your future. So today we're doing a deep dive into something called epigenetic lifestyle programming. It's this really revolutionary science that's showing us we have way more control over our own biology than we ever thought possible. And by the end of this, you'll get something that honestly 99% of people probably don't grasp yet: how your everyday choices can unlock some serious genetic potential for better health, better performance. You'll get some actionable stuff, hopefully, to understand yourself a bit better, why things affect you the way they do, giving you maybe some surprising new clarity for managing your own well-being.
It really is a fascinating shift, isn't it? Because, traditionally we've always looked at our genes as this fixed blueprint, something we inherit, and it's unchangeable. But the recent research, especially in behavioral epigenetics, it just completely flips that idea on its head. Our gene expression, basically, whether a gene is active or silent, turns out to be incredibly dynamic. It's constantly being modified by, well, our environment, but crucially, by our lifestyle choices. It's not about changing the actual letters in your genetic book, if that makes sense. It's more like changing which pages get read, or maybe how loudly those pages are read out.
Wow, okay. That feels incredibly empowering, actually. So it's not just about destiny written in stone. It's more like our daily decisions are constantly sending signals, telling our genes what to do. That puts a lot of power back in our hands, doesn't
It
it?
absolutely does, yeah. So at its core, epigenetics is about these molecular mechanisms,
Mm.
things with names like DNA, methylation,
Yeah.
histone modifications, non-coding RNAs.
Okay, maybe slow down on the jargon there for those of us not deep in molecular biology.
Right, right. Good point. Think of them like tiny chemical tags or little notes written in the margins of your DNA, or maybe like dimmer switches on a light. They don't change the actual DNA sequence. The fundamental code stays the same. But these tags and modifications, they control how much a gene gets used, whether it's turned way up, turned way down, or switched off completely. And because this regulation is so dynamic, it means our gene expression is always responding to cues from our environment for our lives. And that's precisely where lifestyle choices become so incredibly important, which, leads to the big question. If our genes aren't totally fixed, how exactly do our daily lives influence them? Is there a framework for this?
And that's where it gets really practical and I think super interesting. Researchers have come up with this idea called lifestylopathy. It sounds a bit clinical maybe, but it's basically a framework. It helps us understand how specific structured lifestyle changes actively shape our gene expression. It goes beyond just eat your veggies. It talks about four key kinds of potential energy that we manage. There's chemical energy, elastic energy, mental energy, and voluntary energy.
Yeah, let's break those down quickly. Chemical energy, that's pretty straightforward.
Right.
What you eat, drink, breathe, nutrition, basically. Elastic energy, that's all about physical movement. Exercise, flexibility, how resilient your body is physically. Mental energy covers things like your focus, how you handle stress, your emotional state, cognitive load. And voluntary energy, this is about your conscious choices. Discipline, making ethical decisions, having a sense of purpose. Lifestylopathy suggests that finding a balance across these energy domains is key. It can seriously boost your immune system, improve cognitive stability, help prevent disease. It's this balancing act, right? Between your body's structure, its potential, and its ability to adapt and flex, its entropy. You need both for things to run optimally.
Right, like a finely tuned machine. You need the solid parts, but also the ability to adjust to different conditions. So if
Yeah.
someone's constantly feeling drained mentally, maybe the answer isn't just, I don't know, more brain games. It could be looking at their diet, their chemical energy, or how much they move, their elastic energy.
Exactly. It encourages a more holistic view. It's all interconnected.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's get concrete then. You mentioned meditation earlier. Can sitting quietly actually, like, change our DNA response?
Well, not the DNA sequence itself, but yes, its expression. The evidence from the last 5 years or so is pretty compelling. Regular mindfulness practice shows direct links to changes in these epigenetic markers we talked about, specifically things like DNA methylation patterns on genes that regulate cortisol, your main stress hormone. So when you practice mindfulness regularly, it's not just making you feel calmer in the moment. It seems to be leading to less stress and inflammation, partly because it's literally reprogramming or maybe fine-tuning the genes involved in your body's stress response system.
Okay, stop right there. That's kind of mind-blowing. So my morning meditation isn't just like a mental exercise. It's actually telling my stress genes to chill out.
That's what the science is strongly suggesting, yes. It's modifying how those genes behave.
Wow. Okay, so if meditation can do that, what about food? We hear a lot about the Mediterranean diet. Is there something special going on there at the genetic level?
It definitely looks that way. Research shows diets like the Mediterranean or the DASH diet, which is often recommended for blood pressure, do more than just improve standard health markers. They seem to actively slow down what we call epigenetic aging. They promote healthier DNA methylation patterns. This seems especially beneficial for people at higher risk of chronic diseases like heart disease or diabetes. These foods provide the right kind of chemical signals, you could say.
Right, giving the genes the instructions for better health. But okay, here's something I read about that really surprised me. Time-restricted eating. It's not just what you eat, but when. Apparently, this can influence gene expression across, get this, more than 22 different regions of the body and brain. That sounds massive.
It is pretty remarkable. Yeah, those studies, often in mice initially, showed really widespread effects. In one key study, something like 70% of mouse genes showed different expression levels depending on when the mice ate, even if the total calories were the same.
70%, just from changing the eating window.
It highlights how important our internal clocks, our circadian rhythms, are for regulating gene activity throughout the body. It's a powerful signal. So yes, not just calories in, calories out. The timing sends its own genetic messages.
Okay, that's a huge takeaway. We'll definitely circle back to that timing aspect later, maybe as a little bonus. What about exercise? We know it's good for muscles, but is it also a genetic programmer?
Absolutely. Physical activity is another really potent epigenetic modulator. Things like high-intensity interval training, HIIT, or even combining strength and cardio, what some call hybrid training. These are shown to trigger epigenetic changes that improve metabolic function, help build more mitochondria, those are the powerhouses in your cells, and improve insulin sensitivity. All really crucial for long-term health.
Okay, so it makes our metabolism work better at a fundamental level.
Yes, but here's something even more fascinating, perhaps. Exercise also seems to improve how our brain responds to psychological stress. It does this by boosting certain epigenetic mechanisms and gene expression, specifically in the dentate gyrus, a part of the brain vital for learning, memory, and mood regulation.
So working out isn't just for physical strength, it's literally building mental resilience at the genetic level, helping your brain handle stress better.
That's exactly what the research points towards. It reinforces the brain's ability to cope.
This is all leaning towards something pretty profound. Our conscious choices, the things we decide to do, seem to have direct genetic consequences. Can this extend to things like, say, deciding to act ethically or living with a strong sense of purpose? Does that actually change anything biologically?
The evidence is building in that direction too, yes. It sounds a bit philosophical, but research suggests our voluntary actions, our discipline choices, they do influence gene expression, particularly in pathways related to stress. Making ethical choices, maintaining discipline, these behaviors seem to support neuroplasticity. That's the brain's ability to change and adapt. This correlates with better cognitive function and, interestingly, low reported risk of anxiety and depression.
Okay, so choosing the harder right over the easier wrong might actually be good for your brain wiring.
It seems to contribute, yes. And furthermore, actions driven by a sense of purpose. Those have been linked to better regulation of inflammatory gene expression. Chronic inflammation is tied to so many stress-related illnesses. So living purposefully might help minimize those negative effects and promote better long-term health. It's not just good for the soul, as they say. It appears to be good for the genes, too.
That really broadens the picture. So our environment, our choices, they're not just influencing us psychologically, they're actively triggering and regulating our gene activity. We are, in a very real sense, sculpting our own biology through how we live.
Precisely. And it's a two-way street, isn't it? As we develop personally, make different choices, we often change our external circumstances too.
Okay.
And those changed circumstances then feed back and further influence our gene expression. And this influence isn't just internal. Even our social world plays a role. Social signals can actually trigger long-lasting epigenetic changes.
Social signals, like how people treat us.
Exactly. There was this really remarkable early study, now quite famous, looking at mother rats and their pups. It found that the amount of licking and grooming, basically, motherly care the pups received, triggered specific, known epigenetic changes. DNA methylation, again. And these changes affected how the pups responded to stress later in life. But here's the kicker. Those changes were then passed down to the next generation. The way they were mothered affected their genes, which affected how they then mothered their own pups.
Whoa. So the care we receive, or maybe the care we give, could literally leave an imprint on our DNA that echoes across generations.
It's a profound idea, but that's what the animal models strongly suggest. It highlights how deeply interconnected we are with our environment and each other, right down to the molecular level.
Okay. This brings us to a massive question then. What does all this mean for who we are? Our personality. Are we just stuck with the traits we're born with, or can we genuinely change?
That's really the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the science here offers, I think, a lot of hope. Leading researchers often talk about a kind of 50-50 split.
50-50, what does that mean?
It means that while, yes, our inherited genetics play a significant role, maybe accounting for roughly half of the variation in personality traits, the other 50% seems to be modifiable. It's influenced by our environment and, crucially, by the kind of deliberate lifestyle interventions we've been talking about.
Hold on. Half. Half of our personality is potentially within our control to change through lifestyle.
That's the implication, yes. It's a rough estimate, of course, but it suggests a substantial opportunity for self-directed transformation. You're not entirely locked into your inherited tendencies.
That's huge. That completely challenges the idea that I am who I am is the final word. It means we have real agency.
We do. The science makes it pretty clear. Our habits, our behaviors, our surroundings, they function like switches. They can turn certain genetic predispositions up or down, make them more or less likely to manifest. So by consciously choosing healthier habits, focusing on good nutrition, getting regular exercise, ensuring enough sleep, managing stress effectively, you're not just improving your physical health markers. You are actively, positively influencing your genetic expression in ways that can support not just longevity, but also real shifts in personality traits over time. It becomes this truly holistic path to self-improvement, grounded in biology.
It really reframes everything, doesn't it? It's not just about preventing disease. It's about optimizing who we can become. And thinking back to that time-restricted eating point, that feels like a perfect example of this holistic effect. It wasn't just tweaking one thing. It was influencing gene expression across over 22 areas of the body and brain. That's not a minor tweak. That's like a system-wide update. Just from changing it's like discovering your body's internal clock is the master conductor for your entire genetic orchestra. Amazing detail. Okay, wow. Let's try and pull this together. This has been an incredible deep dive. So, quick recap. We've learned our genes aren't this fixed, unchanging destiny. They're dynamic, they're responsive, they're being constantly fine-tuned by our daily choices. We looked at lifestyleopathy, this idea of balancing our different energy types, chemical, elastic, mental, voluntary, to really optimize how our biology functions.
Right, and we saw some really solid examples, how meditation isn't just calming, but seems to modify stress genes. How specific diets, like the Mediterranean, and even when we eat, act as powerful genetic editors. And how exercise isn't just building muscle, it's actually building cognitive resilience, helping our brain cope with stress better, right down at the genetic level.
And crucially, we saw that our conscious choices, our voluntary actions, even our social connections are actively shaping our genetic landscape. That 50-50 rule for personality, that's a game changer, right? Knowing that maybe half of who we are is potentially adaptable through these lifestyle choices. Every habit suddenly feels more significant. It's like we're flipping genetic switches with every decision.
It definitely puts the power and perhaps the responsibility back onto us. Which leads to, I think, a really potent question for everyone listening. If your daily actions are, in fact, programming your genetic destiny to such a degree, what's one habit, could be small, could be significant, what's one habit you could choose to start, or maybe stop starting today, to begin consciously rewriting your own story for a healthier, maybe more fulfilled, more resilient version of yourself?
That's a powerful question to sit with, isn't it? The whole idea that we have this level of control over our own biology is just incredibly empowering. But it makes you wonder, are there other forces, maybe hidden ones, that are just as powerful, silently shaping our choices, our perceptions every single day, maybe without us even noticing? Well, next time on the deep dive, we're going to explore exactly that. We'll be diving into the surprising science behind unconscious biases, how these invisible influences can dictate everything from who we trust to the big and small decisions we make constantly. You really won't want to miss understanding how these unseen forces might be operating in your own life. So definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you get your deep dives, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, you name it. Don't miss out on unlocking that next layer. Until next time, keep diving deep.